All right, we're live.
I now call to order the City of College Place City Council Workshop. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Councilmember Jessup,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Espinoza,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Sherman,
Present.
and Councilmember Boyle.
Present.
And Councilmember Williams has asked to be excused. We do have a quorum. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's now time for public comment. Clerk, did anyone submit a written comment in advance or a request to speak via telephone or virtually?
I did not receive any written comments or requests.
If anyone in person would like to speak, please raise your hand. So from that point, we have nobody online, correct? So we can, obviously, so there's no, star 9 or any of that. Thank you. So workshop topics, let's move on into that. There are 4 topics on the agenda for tonight. First, Mr. McAndrews and Mr. Fasari will present the city engineer update on wastewater projects.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Alex to give your presentation.
All right, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. All right, yeah, so we have a presentation here giving you an update on the wastewater treatment plant. So we'll go over some of the alternatives we're considering and also give you a quick update now that we've opened bids on a few projects as well. I'll give you an update on the budget. Okay. Yeah, so for the what I'll be sharing with you today is schedule update for our projects that we just opened bids on, and then discuss 3 alternatives for the next phase of the wastewater treatment plant and talk about perhaps what some next steps might be for the council to consider. So yeah, we just opened bids on 3 different projects. The first one being lift station number 5. That one was awarded to Apollo, about a $2.8 million bid. They're beginning construction now. I don't know if you've been out in that neighborhood. I drove by today. It looks like they've mobilized equipment in and started in on clearing and grubbing for the lift station site itself. So work will be going through the end of the year on that project, and we'll hope to get it all wrapped up and paved by the end of the year. Second project we opened bids on was the sewer pipe rehabilitation, or the cured in place piping is the other word we used for this project before. That one was awarded to In Situ Farm for a bid of about 1.5 million. We issued the notice to proceed this week and we're waiting on their schedule, but they'll have about 100 working days. So we anticipate that one will be completed this year as well. Then the third project that we opened bids on was the wastewater treatment plant phase 1. And so that one we're awarding to Apollo also. That one's a bid of about $5.5 million for that. And we're expecting that construction will take about a year. So all these 3 projects were funded with the same source of funding from the Department of Ecology. The lift station 5 number came in a little bit higher than the engineer's estimate, but the sewer pipe rehab came in a little bit under the engineer's estimate. So those should relatively balance each other out in terms of the funding. And so for the wastewater treatment plant portion of the funding, it was about a little over $22 million, so $22,665,000. The remainder of that funding pays for those other two projects we just talked about, Lift Station 5 and the cured in place piping. But as far as the funds dedicated for the treatment plant itself, it was a little over $22 million. 3 million of that, the EPA community grant, and then the remainder of that being 50% loan, 50% grant. So now that we opened bids on the phase 1 project, and we know it's about 5.5 million, now we know we have about 17 million left of funding to be used for the next phase of the wastewater treatment plant, or what we're going to be calling phase 1B. And if you remember, with that funding agreement, we have until the end of 2025 to decide how we're going to spend that 17 million. And so the rest of my talk today is to remind you about what the default plan is and what a couple of the other alternatives are that we're looking at for how to spend that $17 million. So just a quick reminder of the key permit issues that this funding is intended to help resolve. So the big one being eliminating the discharge to Garrison Creek during the critical period of May through October. Currently, during the growing season, the effluent is land applied on the 110 acres of croplands, but in the shoulder seasons like the spring and the fall, sometimes depending on the growing conditions, there isn't enough land to spread that water. And so some water gets discharged to Garrison Creek during the months of May and October in particular. And so that's one of the key issues we're trying to resolve with the treatment plant upgrades. The other one being PCBs. And so we did get a bit of a reprieve from ecology of the PCBs and the fact that they issued an administrative order in February, which corrected some language that was in the previous permit. So that's a good thing. That's been a nice thing, but there's still the risk of PCBs in future permits. And the current permit expired in February of 2019, and ecology is still waiting to issue that permit. So we don't really know what's going to be in that permit until we get it. So those were some of the key permit issues. So in terms of how we want to, what the rest of that $17 million is intended to cover, there's really three different alternatives. Number one is really the default plan. It's what we've already designed. So that's been designed and approved by ecology, and the funding would cover that. So that's one of the three alternatives. The second one is one that we've talked about a few times over the past year, and that is constructing a pump station and pipeline that would pump treated effluent to the city of Walla Walla. And so there've been a few joint council meetings with the Walla Walla's council to explore this, and we now have some more information to share with you about this, and which is a few slides down the road here. Then the third alternative is something that's come up within the past 6 months, and that is instead pumping the highly treated effluent to an irrigation district, particularly and specifically the Gardena Farms irrigation district. So that's a third potential alternative for us to consider. So in terms of the first of the three options, kind of what we're calling the default plan, that would be to build a large storage pond and reconstruct the whole irrigation distribution system on the acreage that you have, the 110 acres, and then also expanding a new 80 acres that you purchased a few years ago. So the area, I guess in that orange color, is what you currently own and what you currently land apply your effluent on. That's about 110 acres. The gray rectangular piece to the west, that's a new 80 acres that you purchased a few years ago from the DNR. So we would expand the land treatment area to that area as well. And as part of the design, we tried to include pivot irrigation where possible. There's just so much relief in the terrain there that only a few of the areas could we get circles on. The rest will still be hand lines, but it would improve the irrigation system out there. And so in addition to the storage pond and the irrigation system and expanding the land treatment area, it's also adding UV disinfection. So that's what was in the current plan that was approved by ecology. That's already been designed. And that's what the remainder of the 17 million could potentially fund. So this would be the first of the three alternatives, kind of what we're calling the default plan. The second alternative is pumping it to Walla Walla. So this would involve constructing a pump station and pipeline to Walla Walla, and it would be about a 4 mile long pipeline. And this map just shows one potential alignment for that pipeline. And it would also require a user agreement with Walla Walla. And essentially, because you'd be sending them treated effluent, you'd only be sending flows through a portion of their wastewater treatment plant. So just using their filtration and their disinfection and their outfall. And so over the past several months, we've been working with FCS Group to help come up with what that cost might be in terms of the agreement between College Place and Walla Walla. I think when we got together last time and discussed this, that was something that you all wanted, was a little more information on what the costs might be for that alternative. So there's basically 3 different scenarios for that agreement between Walla Walla and College Place. And we're calling those the renter, the customer, and then true regionalization. And the renter model, it's really just there's no firm commitment to the capacity that you would take. And the capacity isn't guaranteed. And so I know you've voiced that that's not something that you're interested in. The second one being the customer model, where there is a guaranteed capacity that you'd be allocated at the Walla Walla plant. And then that comes with also a fee and a connection fee as well. And then the regionalization, really forming a separate sewer district. We didn't get into that one yet. We thought, well, we'll look at these first 2, renter and customer, first, to see how you feel about that, and if you want to then pursue this and maybe look at the regionalization, or you might decide this isn't a scenario really that you want to pursue any further. And so the FCS Group is the company that has put together the numbers on this, and they do have a presentation that's prepared if we want to have a joint council meeting where that can present it to both you and Walla Walla's councils to talk a little bit more about it. In terms of the costs, so that renter model, which again isn't one that you're interested in because there's no guaranteed capacity with it, it's about $260,000 per year. So that's what Walla Walla would charge College Place for sending their treated effluent to the wastewater treatment plant. The customer model, which is a little bit more of a palatable option because you have guaranteed capacity, FCS Group calculated that to be about $126,000 per year, but also a $3.5 million connection charge, essentially a buy-in to the facility that you'd be using that they've already built, the filtration, the disinfection, and the outfall. And in terms of the capital cost for this alternative, so the cost to build that pump station and pipeline, that $17 million of funding would pay for that. So in comparison with alternative 1, the default plan, that same amount of money could be used to build this pump station and pipeline, but you also have these annual costs and buy-in cost as well for the second alternative. Yeah.
So, $17 million is out in the right. So it's the difference between the 22 and the 5.5. And with the 17 you could bring to get up the full speed.
Yeah, let's go backwards. Go back to that. Yeah, so the funding agreement with Ecology is for a little over $22 million for the wastewater treatment plant. So for the phase 1 project, which we just opened the bids on, that was $5.5 million. So yeah, the 17 million is the amount of funding we have left to spend for completing the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Was that your question?
Right, but it's 17 spent here or 17 spent. Their facility.
Well, that wouldn't be to upgrade their facilities. So that 17 million would be what you'd spend to build a pump station and pipeline to get it to Walla Walla. And then the annual fee, that would be your cost to use that part of their system. So essentially what FCS Group did was they looked at the cost of operating their entire system. Then they looked at just the cost of operating the portion of the system that you would be using and prorated it to the flows that you're contributing to the plant. So that's essentially a prorated cost that you would pay essentially as a customer for them to accept your treated effluent, continuing to treat it and dispose of it.
We don't know what the total cost would, to be totally independent into the future, 15 years into the future. We don't know what that number is, do we?
Independent, what do you mean?
We keep our sewer, we treat it. There's no pipeline going to Walla.
Oh, yeah, so the default plan would be that. If we build your storage pond and build your distribution system, the irrigation distribution
Right.
system and expand the land treatment, you're your own, like you're doing right now.
So you're saying it's gonna be the same cost capital wise between doing it here or going to Walla Walla,
Correct.
but at Walla Walla, we wouldn't have a fee that goes in the 126,000.
At Walla Walla, we would have a fee.
In addition.
What's
Yeah.
that?
With ours, we would.
You're right.
Yeah, so if it's, so in option one, if we spend that 17 million expanding what you have now, there are no additional fees you're paying because you're your own treatment system. You're in control of your disposal system. You have control of your own destiny with the default plan, alternative one. Alternative two, you have a fee that you're paying Walla Walla and you're guaranteed that portion of the capacity of their plant, but future upgrades that they do that would be to the filtration, disinfection, outfall, they might ask you to partner with in the future.
I'm sorry, I don't. Is a 17 a new number? Have we discovered that? Not internally with our own treatment, but with our agreement with Walla Walla, is that 17 a relatively new calculation?
Yes, it is. Well, it's something we looked to see what the cost would be to build a pump station and 4-mile long pipeline to Walla Walla. It's about $17 million. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem. And that cost is something you asked us to come up with last time we were together, because you said, we want to know what the true cost of this alternative really is. And so that's what we tried to do. We worked with FCS Group to calculate what the connection fee and annual charge might be, and then also develop what the capital cost will be for that pump station pipeline.
Thank you for refreshing my memory.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Let's see. Yes, okay, those are the costs. So a few other considerations with this second alternative, this Walla Walla alternative. They're currently beginning the facility plan for their wastewater treatment plant. And so we're working on that. We're just getting started on it next month. We're expecting it's going to take about a year. So through that facility planning process, that will identify projects they're going to be working on the next 10 to 20 years. And that would help inform whether there's any filtration upgrades or UV disinfection upgrades or outfall upgrades that they might ask you to partner in. And it is very likely that there will be filtration improvements required at their treatment plant. So it's pretty likely that through the facility planning process, there will be a project that potentially they'd ask you to, in addition, help partner with in the future if you choose the second alternative. And then the last thing, water is a valuable resource and it's going to be even more valuable into the future. And just sending that water to Walla Walla, then that's their resource to then use in the future potentially. So I think it's wise to be in control of that resource. I know it seems kind of apropos now, but there will be a time that we're drinking that water and it's not too far down the road. And so holding that resource and being in control of it is something to consider. And then the third alternative. So this is something that's come up. It came up, I think, last October. There's a group that Robert and Mike are being more involved with called Walla Walla 2050. And it's looking at the entire watershed around Walla Walla. There's a lot of different stakeholders involved. And they're looking at spending a lot of money in the region. And so one of the ideas that this group asked about was, why doesn't College Place send their effluent to the Gardena Farms Irrigation District? And in fact, this is one of the alternatives we looked at in the facility plan back in 2018. And so here's a map of, I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but In the upper right-hand corner of the image, that gray rectangle, that's your wastewater treatment plant. And that yellow line is about a 11-mile long earthen canal that diverts water from the Walla Walla River for the irrigation district. And all those areas in light green is the Gardena Farms irrigation district. So those are all the lands that they irrigate. And so this concept would be to pump your water to that irrigation ditch for use instead. And so the Gardena Farms irrigation district, as part of this potential project, they would like to pipe that upper 11 miles of their ditch. And preliminary discussions have indicated that they would be willing to take the water year round. But that's been a bit of a sticking point with ecology, and that's something we still need to continue working through. So that could be a sticking point on this. But if we could get ecology to agree that you don't need to discharge your water into Garrison Creek in the winter, and we could instead send it to this irrigation district, there are a few things we would need to do. So we need to do a few additional upgrades at your treatment plant to produce what they call Class A reuse water so that it could be used for irrigation. And then we would build a pump station and pipeline to their canal. It would only be about a mile long. And so, like I said, this was an alternative that we looked at in the facility plan in 2018. And this was identified to be a total of a $29 million project. So we would need to definitely find additional funds to further upgrade the treatment plant to make this work. But a couple other benefits, the current 110 acre farm that you irrigate now, you would no longer need. You would no longer need to continue operating that. You could potentially repurpose that 110 acres since all of your water would be going to this irrigation district instead. And because it's a win-win solution for both the irrigation district and the city, it's looked at as a win-win solution, as something potentially fundable by this 2050 group. So this slide just compares the cost of those three alternatives that we just talked through. So again, the first option, constructing the project, is currently designed. We already have the $17 million secured. We could build that project. Again, you're in control of your own destiny. It's the plan we've been working on for the past few years. The second alternative, constructing the pump station and pipeline to pump your treated effluent to Walla Walla. Again, we could use that 17 million instead to build this pump station and pipeline, but you also have the additional costs of the $126,000 a year and the buy-in to the Walla Walla system of another $3.5 million. Then this third option, which would be to consider doing this highly treated effluent and sending it to the Gardena Farms irrigation district, we'll definitely need to go get some additional funding for the treatment plant to consider that alternative. So in terms of next steps, I think one question to consider is, do we want to continue these discussions with Walla Walla to look at the second alternative or not? As I mentioned, the FCS group has a presentation put together that they could present to both councils to go through the details of how they came up with their costs and talk a little bit about the pros and cons of the different models. So is that something you want to do next, to schedule a meeting and talk about that some more? Or is this alternative one that you just want to cross off the table and focus on the other two? Do we want to continue pursuing this Gardena Farms irrigation district option? If so, we need to continue negotiating with ecology about the water rights issue and get some additional funding for those upgrades. Or do we just want to move forward with alternative one? So those are some of the next steps, and hopefully this helped provide some information to help inform that decision. So I think that's it.
Mike, you had a.
Yeah, since I've been involved in a lot of conversations about the various models here, I just want to do a little Cliff's Notes, if you will, about what's going on today. If we went with the wall model, what's been point blank communicated to staff at least is that initially, the only options they're considering is the customer versus renter and some amorphous point in the future, maybe a district, but thinking that there would be a launch right into that they definitely did not seem keen on that. So there's that issue at the forefront. I will say for the new permit that is being written, like if we were to operate our own plan, it'll satisfy that for now. Whole reason we were investigating this is because the wastewater facility plan, if you remember, past phase one, instead of appointing a time in the future, there was a phase 2, 3, and 4 that was very land intensive and cost prohibitive in the tens of millions. At that juncture, ecology going back really early in 2017, and so ecology was like a hard no on the Gardena thing. Since that time, they've changed their tenor a bit where there still is a back and forth, but in that Walla 2050 group that we're now engaged with, it seems like they're very open to figuring out a solution because there's a lack of water and you can't just invent it, basically. And they get direct earmarks as well, directly from the state legislature. So I already submitted one if this is, so we could continue what we're doing, but if we want to further investigate the Gardena issue, that Walla 2050 group, they sent an invite for us because I presented the initial concept, and it seems like they're willing to spearhead turning in a 2 million earmark request from the legislature to do the engineering of what would be the makeup of this, which is pretty interesting at that point. So I mean, it's not like everyone's like, oh yeah, Gardena now, but it isn't a hard no like it was in the past either. There seems to be element of gray there.
Mr. Pizzari, if you could go back one, sorry, I don't want you to have to do, yeah. I think if this, what caught my attention, number 2, and maybe we can add a sentence there. And that was the additional possible capital costs that are unknown, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So I think it's important if we use this. No, you have a wonderful presentation. Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But that can send a shiver down your spine.
Sure.
Because we don't know if 5 years from now, are we talking about
You're
20
right.
million divided? We don't know, right? We would be, you still want to use the pipeline, right? But then pay the bill, right?
Mhm. Correct. Yes, you're right. That is missing there. That, to be
But-
complete, that should say potential future partnership on a Walla Walla upgrade. Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I think we're, yeah. Mr. Jessup, we'll start with you.
I had a couple questions. One, as we're exploring, great idea on the alternative to the third one, in my opinion. Do we know or have a feeling that we have time with ecology to play out this scenario? You know what I mean? Are they gonna allow that grace of a year or two to let us figure this out, or?
Yeah, we currently have till, the funding agreement says we have till the end of 2025
Right.
to decide how to spend that 17 million.
Well, if I've learned anything in this position, it usually takes about 5 years to get answers back. So I didn't know if we had that. So as we're going through the process, and the second one quick, and then when it says 28 million, essentially we need to find 12 million because we have 17,
Correct.
but the project would be potentially 28. We need to find, as in, we need to
Yes.
find 12.
And the other thing to remember is that estimate of the 28 or 29 was back in 2018. So
Oh, it's
part of what-
Yeah,
this $2 million, if we get it, would
yeah.
help us reevaluate that, refresh the numbers, look at the design a little more carefully. That number might go up, it might go down.
Yeah, like,
Because it was just in a facility plan,
Okay.
so it's very rough planning numbers.
sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to tie a little bit into the whole timeline thing. So with the current improvements that we've engineered, the phase 1A and B, if you will, that gets us through the next couple of years with the new permit cycle. So we're golden for the next couple of years. The whole purpose of this exercise is we want to make sure we set ourselves up for phase phase 2 and 3, if ecology really wanted us, we're essentially, you're back to a very big number. Just the way the tenor is around that Wawa 2050 group, I just have a hunch that by that time, the pitch to get more water resources toward Gardena and these irrigators is going to reach more where I think even that side is a little cautious about is going to back down because there's already other port like Fish and Wildlife and other groups of ecology where they're like, this is a good idea and I don't know why we're in the way of it. So that's some. I mean, yeah, we have the timeline to decide till the 2025, but I would just say with the phasing plan, that would get us essentially past that to continue to further explore Gardena.
And you're getting a general vibe from
Yeah.
all the stakeholders that you're kind of
Yeah.
looking good. So with that cost though, you said about a mile of piping and such. So we would be on the hook for that mile of piping, or they're wanting to pipe all of it rather than just that irrigation ditch?
Yeah, well, so the irrigation district, they're hoping to get their 11 miles of their canal piped as well.
That we would be also involved in that?
No, I mean, that's their cost, but
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
yeah, that would be their cost,
Okay.
but our hope is that if we can combine this as one funding package to present
To
the-
ecology.
to the, yeah, they could see this as a win-win. So the irrigation district, because our flows are a very small amount of the flow that the irrigation district needs. It's really small, but they see a benefit. The irrigation district, the benefit for the irrigation district would be to pipe the upper 11 miles of their canal, because right now that earthen ditch leaks so much that when they divert 13 CFS out of the river, they don't even see a drop of it in their system.
Okay.
It's only when they divert over that. So the benefit is there's 13 CFS of water that instead of just leaking into the ground
Yeah.
can be piped and used instead. And the other benefit for them is they're interested in using this water in the winter as well. So this irrigation district, they don't get water starting in July. And so they're farming without any water in July, August. So it's really interesting. They've learned to adapt and they apply a lot of water in the winter time. And their root systems are super deep.
Yeah.
So they store as much water in the soil as they can. So they're interested in using the water in the winter time, which is unusual for an irrigation
It
district.
just seems like common sense to me, and you had asked earlier, and just my opinion, I'll be done, I promise. I'm getting eyeballs. The renter customer model just doesn't seem to make sense, in my personal opinion, with Wawa at all.
Mhm.
So if we can have the timeline, we're gonna have 2 or 3 years, it just seems like,
Mr. Cleveland.
I'm not a fan of the renter customer model. I think the only way I'd feel comfortable moving forward with working with City of Wawa is if we do have a regionalization plan. That's just my opinion. But as far as the options here of just putting all our money towards the originally imagined project, if we started doing that, would that preclude pursuing option number 3, or can we pretty much start moving forward with phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on top of that, we pursue funding for this additional approach? Is that what we're doing?
So I think you'd want to consider either 1 or 3, because if we spend that $17 million on 1, there isn't really any part of that would be useful for the Gardena Farms option, because 1 is building a storage pond and 1 is investing a bunch of money in your 110 acres. Whereas if we pick
Okay,
alternative
yeah.
3, you wouldn't need that 110
Okay,
acres.
that's making sense. We're building something we aren't using.
Yeah,
Whereas to deal with all this effluent versus like, let's give it to them.
yeah. Now you still could do it, but you would have spent all this money and
Right,
invested in it.
that
for-
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Good question.
Mhm.
So we'd be pretty much saying, all right, we're gonna move forward with phase 1. We want to pursue this option of 3 to benefit a local irrigation district that need water, it's beneficial, regional, all that kind of stuff. Are we giving them the treated effluent for free? Or is there some kind of agreement where we're getting compensated for it, or?
There would definitely need to be an agreement put together for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned water is an extremely valuable resource. And at one point, I mean, we get water from wells. And if we mine the aquifer, we're out of water. And so we might one day be drinking treated wastewater
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
Would this preclude us from saying, hey, we had this agreement with Gardena Farms to send you our effluent, but we're reaching this point where we need to reuse our own effluent for drinking water.
Mhm.
Would that be an option, or are we pretty much saying, this is all guaranteed yours now and we can't take any of it back?
I think that is all negotiable in the agreement, depending on how you work that agreement. And I would definitely, there would be terms in that agreement that at some point, say 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, depending on how you put the agreement together, it would give you the opportunity to keep that reuse water and use it in your city if you want to, because the neat thing about alternative 3 is it costs more to upgrade the treatment plant, but once you produce what they call Class A reuse water, you can use that a lot of different places. You could use it to irrigate parks and green spaces that you're currently using well water for. So essentially you're buying more capacity in your potable water system when you do things like that. Right now, the economics don't make a lot of sense, but as water becomes more scarce, things change and that water becomes more valuable. So yeah, I would say for sure that's something that's all negotiable. It's all something that could be part of the agreement, and it would be wise to make sure you have the opportunity to keep that water in the future.
Well, option 3 is sounding pretty good to me.
Mhm.
And that's all I had.
Mike, did you have another?
Oh, no, that.
Oh, great. Mr. Espinoza, give a comment?
Yeah, so from what I'm listening, I think that the first two options, we looked at them more in depth. But I think that collaborating where it makes sense is always wise. But I think that our cities should strive for self-sufficiency, meaning that we should have our own systems to be self-reliant. And I believe that the water plant would be one of those things that we cannot ignore, and we have to work on having our own self-reliant system. So I am leaning towards the regionalization plan, because the way I see it, you pay now or pay later, but either way you're going to pay. So we either make the investment up front and look for the funding to go out and build the plant now, or we're going to pay later with fees and additional costs that we might be assessed under the first two models. So I am leaning towards the regionalization model as well, based on the information that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Sherman.
I'm also interested in this Gardena option. Is there a downside to us for pursuing this? Besides the upfront, yes, besides the cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only downside would be, and again, you negotiate in your agreement, is giving them your water.
Right.
Because in the future that water is valuable. I think as long as you have in the agreement that at some point you can keep that water in the future, I don't see a downside. Yeah, you'd be creating Class A reuse water, I guess. Downside, risk, potentially there's a more risk because you're treating your water to a really high level and sending it to the farmers, and they're using it for irrigation. So if there's some upset at the treatment plant and you produce water that's out of spec, you're affecting a lot of farmers. So that's some potential risk. But with this Class A reuse option, ecology requires so much redundancy and reliability because this water is intended for human contact. So the chances become very slim. But I guess that's one potential low likelihood risk.
So should there be some sort of very expensive hybrid option where we keep some and share some? Is that something that we need to talk about, or?
Yeah, so in fact, in this facility plan in 2018, that was one of the things we looked
Right.
at, was producing Class A reuse water and using it within the city.
Right.
The problem is it's very expensive because now you're not only treating to a really high level, but now you need a big storage pond or tank to
Right.
store it and a whole distribution system to distribute it. So that's the additional cost
Right.
for you to use it. And so that's certainly something we could look at.
I mean, do you think we could sell that 110 acres and get back the 17 million that we need? Thank you very much. Okay.
Alex, with the current $6 million spending that we have, which takes us up to the 26 million, is that how you're broke out the 17 million?
Yeah, let me go back to that. It's not going back for me.
Because our total funding package is 26 million.
Yes, so
And that includes Lift Station 5 and CITP project.
yes, so yeah, of that 26 million, if we subtract out what we're doing in the collection system.
Yeah.
That leaves about 22 million for the treatment plant.
And then less 6 or 5, whatever gets to this.
Right.
Do you feel that with these changes that are currently being done in phase 1, that there'll be some operational cost savings?
For what we're building right now?
Yeah.
Let's see, we're doing it, yes, there will be some, because right now there's leaking air piping. And that's just wasted energy. And so we will save some energy with this first project.
But not millions of dollars.
No.
It's all compliance.
It's all compliance and an operational need too. Yeah.
Ms. Boyle.
I really, really like the Gardena option. Previously, I kind of was interested in the regional irrigation system partnership, but then seeing that we would only have 15% voice. And I know that we're a much smaller piece than the city of Walla Walla, but 15% basically puts us back in the renter customer option. And it just doesn't make any sense if we're going to spend the same amount of money to be under their thumb versus our own. I really like this new option 3 if we can get Ecology to sign off. So otherwise I like
It's like control your own destiny or any other option.
Right. Yeah, pretty much.
Is some of the cost, we're getting more and more perfect information, right? Over the years, we've talked about, we don't know what this is going to cost. Now we know a little bit better. I remember there's something that I've used many times in conversations that the EPA was asking us to filter an item that was unidentifiable. And that's not the PCB.
It's the PCB.
It's the PCB.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess my question, and we probably don't know the answer to this, but some of the dollar amounts that we're looking at in the future to get this plant up to some level of excellence may or may not come to pass if they're asking us to try to filter something that is unidentifiable. In other words, are some of those dollars that we're looking at have that equation built into it that we need to get to this point at some point, or is that outside of this?
That's outside of this. I think that's an important point. Regulations are always changing. Things are getting more and more strict. We'll never get the plant perfect because there'll always be a new regulation that's going to require some sort of an upgrade. Yeah. So yeah, the PCBs are what you were thinking of. So in the existing permit, it required a PCB compliance using a test that isn't EPA certified. And so that earlier in the presentation, when I talked about the administrative order that Ecology acknowledged that was a mistake in the permit and essentially wrote the administrative order to say, we realize this was a mistake. You don't have to comply with this in this permit. So essentially, in terms of PCBs, we're somewhat covered, but things change constantly. I don't know. You may have been reading, now there's new regulations EPA is looking at for something called PFAS. And if you haven't read about it yet, you're going to start reading a lot more about it. They recently came out with PFAS requirements for drinking water systems. And by the end of this year, EPA is going to come out with PFAS requirements for biosolids as well. So it's a never-ending battle. But to answer your question, no, this doesn't, we don't have the crystal ball that can predict what those might be.
I don't want to speak for the other council members, but I think you know where we're headed here on, from the comments that were made. I guess I don't want to see, I don't want to speak for everyone, but, we don't necessarily want to have presentations on things that we're probably not interested in. And so I'll let you, kind of filter that, you and Mike. And so we've talked about option 2 and 3 and whether 2 works, great. If we can write something in, or 3 works great. I'm sorry, let me back up. 1 and 3, whoops, 1 and 3. 1 and 3, but, if we can write something in there, you know, like you said, there's a possibility that we go to Gardena, but at some point in the future, we may want our water back or something like that. So that's, yeah, that's, I think, yeah, that's where we're headed, obviously. So, yeah. Any other questions for anyone, or, okay, go ahead, please.
So option 3, it says highly treated effluent that would be sent to them. That's not class A?
That's class A.
Oh, it is class A?
Yes.
Is that water that is drinkable, that is usable by humans, or is it just?
It's not drinkable, but it's safe for human contact.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So we would need to go above and beyond that if we wanted to keep our water and use it for.
No, that water, so that highly treated effluent, that class A water.
Well, it has uses, but we couldn't just dump it into our regular system.
Oh, correct. Yeah, you can put it in your potable system.
We would need.
Yeah,
much
so
additional-
you could use it for irrigation, and that's why I was saying, if you do want to use it for irrigation, you have the cost of a whole nother distribution system.
Right,
To get
right.
it where you want it. Yeah, you can't put it directly in your potable system.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
The day will come that we will be talking about that, but we're gonna need to get people to get over the you.
Well, if there's nothing else, thank you so much again. Your presentation is always very informative and accurate and on target. Thank you so much.
Great, yeah, this is good feedback and we'll use it to keep marching forward.
Yeah.
Nice to see you in person.
Yes, agreed.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much. So next on our workshop is the approval to adopt proposed police building analysis and Richard for bond by Chief Tomorrows.
Good evening. I know, my turn to be shamed by the button. Okay, so go ahead and open up the presentation, I guess. First off, thank you for granting us the ability to move forward on an analysis to see the feasibility of having a police building built. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go through it from there. So we've had that analysis done, and this is the result. Quick agenda. We're going to talk about the history of the current building. We'll talk about the analysis, the new building location, preliminary estimate, which will be a bargain compared to the wastewater treatment plant. And next steps on how to register for the bond, and then what the building schedule will be when it's passed. So history of the current police building. I'm told that's a photo of Randy Chamberlain when his first year in college plays. So. So the building that we're in right now, the old annex, was built in 1954, and it was originally a chicken coop. I'm not making this up. I did take some creative freedoms here to add some photos. So you'll see that there to the right. But then it was converted to a mechanical garage. In fact, in the copy machine room, the Xerox machine room, is it still Xerox machine? That's a name brand. There's a little divot in there, and that's where the old oil thing where cars would drive over and change their oil. So pretty funny. The building was converted to a duplex in the 80s and they were using it for student apartments. Where'd Mike go? He needs to be backing me up on some of this stuff. Okay. Well, the building was converted to a duplex in the 80s. It was some student apartments. And when I showed up in 2017 as the chief, we had green shag carpet in the building. I don't know if any of you remember that.
Do you guys still use the hot tub for those long, hard days?
The hot tub was located, I'm told, where the clerk's office is. There was a hot tub in that building. And I think Wade or Paul told me that. So it's
Of course, is will the
it's-
new building have a hot tub?
that I had to talk to the engineers or the architect about
I
that, but
guess
I
either
think
you
that's a
do.
really great idea. Yeah. So I want to kind of take you through some photos here. So photo one, obviously, is the front entrance to the PD. That used to be, there's two entrances and that used to be the entrances to the two duplexes. Photo two is a photo of the patrol room where the officers work. Closest to us is the evidence table. So you're processing evidence 10 feet from where you eat your lunch, all in the same intimate space right there. Photo three is the police lobby. It is not ADA compliant. That computer stand that you see there in the white cabinet is where the clerks process fingerprints. And it's just not a really safe environment for them as well. So we would need to have some improvements on that. Photo four is the break room. It's an old kitchen from the duplex. Photo five is our interview room / Axon body camera bank storage. And we also use that table to process evidence. And then photo six is the bathroom and in the patrol room with lockers. So very tight space. Now, photo one, the reason why I threw that in there, those are 2x4s stacked on top of each other. And the reason why I threw that in there is because that's how the construction of our walls are in that building. They're all 2x4s stacked on top of each other. Photo two shows all the dry rot that's occurring on the exterior of the building. That's all the way around the facility. Photo three shows just some of the holes in the ceiling and just kind of the space that we're working in. It'd be more professional in some ways. Photo four is and five shows you some of our mouse traps that we have throughout our facility. And photo six is the bathroom closest to my office. And you can see that it does have a shower in there, left over from the duplex. Now, photo seven is funny. I threw that in there because we had to replace that ceiling fan in that bathroom here recently. And we discovered that the ceiling fans are not exhausted outside. They're exhausted into the attic. And that's why the odors permeate through our building for so long. And then photo eight is a water system because we have been told that we should not be drinking the water in there because it's old rusty pipes. So we have to bring in water to drink. This is an overview of the police building and then down below is a carport. And then, of course, the evidence processing storage facility is located out there as well. The current building is 4,000 square feet. It's limited on size according to the analysis. It's too small for current operations. We are a growing department. We have a staff of 21 people right now. 17 of us are officers, including me. And the facility is very noisy, office to office. When the sergeants are in conversations with employees or on phones, they can hear each other. The offices are located on the patrol room, so it's hard to have those intimate conversations when you need to. As well as my office, I cannot have a conversation or a private conversation. I have to actually leave the building to have private conversations so that sometimes there's things that just need to be talked about in private and the staff doesn't need to hear. Again, the building is not ADA compliant. We are also limited on record storage and evidence storage. In fact, both records and evidence storage is in City Hall because we don't have a space for it in the police department. And there's a lot more information to back that up, and you can refer to the analysis. It says draft analysis, and I actually have an updated draft analysis that I did not attach, but we have that if you want to read some more information. Thanks again for funding the analysis. Designs West was awarded the contract to conduct the police department facility needs assessment. And they've got a history of doing other police departments. They most recently did the West Richland Police Department, which is observed in the photo to the left there. And I've toured that facility, and it's fantastic. It's a very nice facility they can be very proud of. So the quick answer is yes, we do need a new building. The analysis looked at staffing, calls for service, comparable departments, population, and projected growth in our city. And our community is, as you know, growing, and it's going to grow a lot here over the next 10 to 15 years. Based off that needs assessment, the recommendation is to build a 19,000 square foot building to accommodate staffing and growth for the next 30 to 50 years. That building would also include, similar to the photo down below, it's a training room that can be used also as a community room, which I think would be a very nice resource for our community. The building site location, Mike has been in talks with the library district. They own the property next to the high school at South College in Cedar Bend, and we're looking at acquiring that for the facility. And the architects think that would maybe be on a little bit of the small side, but they can make it work with the 2-story building. I think it would be really nice to have the location next to a very valuable resource in our community and the schools. So it'd be a great location for it. And anytime, if you have questions, please just let me know. So the preliminary, I'm sorry.
Do we know how big West Richland's new building is? When we're saying that you guys are looking at needing 19,000 square feet, how big is their new facility?
Theirs is just over 20,000 square feet. So just a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And they have potential, their growth potential is a lot more than ours as far as how much land they have in the city. So that's one of the things they consider when they're building us out. So, but very close, a little bit less than 1,000 square feet, or a little bit over 1,000 square feet difference. So yeah, projected cost, and it's $14 million. I honestly thought it was going to be more than that, to be honest. The Designs West worked with the contractor who built West Richland's police department to help come up with that estimated cost, and they feel pretty good about that. Next steps, we need to register and request for bond for the upcoming November election. A bond requires a larger voter turnout, and it is recommended that a presidential election is the best time to do that so that we can meet those numbers. So what I'm asking for tonight is approval from council to move forward and register for bond. This will be ultimately up to the community we serve. I'm sorry.
We can't do that, but we can ask you questions and talk about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can't do it tonight. I see what you're saying. Gotcha. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do it? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So questions? Yes.
Oh, the site. Oh,
We did. Yep.
Yeah. So just to double down on that. So that site's owned by the library. Since we're working with them on this whole community center concept, and going in over at Lions Park, I'm working with their board and with Anna Romero to broker a deal where it'll be fairly inexpensive over there, and it's right near Walmart, the school, so really key site in our growth areas over there. So that's just my little linear notes on that piece.
When the bond gets approved, it would be ready to be occupied. If it stays on schedule, it'll be occupied in October, November of 2026.
Mr. Jessen.
Is there designs and such already that shows us up to the 14 million? Is there like a?
No, they haven't done any, what they did is they figured out how many square feet they need for, they do it through interviews. They do it, on the needs assessment, they say, okay, you need a squad room this big for this many people. You need this many offices for this many people. And the offices need to be based on industry best practice this big. You need a training room for this and it's got to be this big. So that's how they figure out the square footage. And then it's also they built in some room for growth. So it'll be bigger than we need initially. And so that we don't have to come back to council in 10 years and say, hey, we need to do an addition. So I think that's very wise on that part. West Richland did that, and they're already occupying a lot of their building that they didn't predict that they were going to be building into already. So very quickly it's going to happen. Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Cleveland.
I think you make a really good case about needing and wanting a new place. I really like the location, especially right on College Avenue. I mean, that's our main thoroughfare. So having, police presence that's very visible, I think is a real positive, especially next to the high school. So you mentioned kind of offices. Would each police officer be able to have their own office, or are they going to have to share? Or
No, office space would be dedicated to supervisors and but specialty positions like detective, where they have to have very isolated space that a little bit more clandestine type of investigations.
okay, you mentioned in thinking about 2 stories to kind of make the most use of the space and parking. Would that include a basement at all, or?
We have talked about the basement, and so once so they know the space, and then once it's approved, that's when they dive into the design element. And of course, being on College Avenue, we would want to make sure that the face of it looks good and represents the city very well. But as far as the basement, I don't know. That would have to be up to the architects and the engineers.
Okay. One other thing is I really like the idea that you're looking forward to meeting the needs of college space for the next foreseeable future. I think you mentioned 50 years, and I feel like College Place kind of has that value of really looking forward, planning for the future. When we originally built the water tower, it was huge capacity, way more than we needed, but we knew we'd eventually need it. So I just appreciate that as kind of informing the project.
I really do feel that the community deserves to have a facility that represents the police force that's serving them, and we're really proud of the achievements that we've made here as an agency over the last 8 years, reaccrediting here recently, and we've doubled in size over the last 8 years, and we're going to continue to grow with the housing that's coming and the commercial that's coming to our city. And we have a building that's failing us right now. We're in desperate need of a new facility, and I think that this is the time to be moving forward on it. And I think that we have a community that will support it. Thank you.
Mr. Espinoza.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Location wise, I am glad that it's next to a high school and close to Walmart. But as I think of the whole layout of the city, I'm wondering if there isn't a more central location to be able to respond quickly to calls and emergencies, because I'm thinking if there is a call on the other end of town, traveling through College Avenue, sometimes it's a bit difficult for emergencies and responding. So that's number one thing that I'm thinking about location wise. Number two is, would you be getting a couple of bids or 2 or 3 bids for the potential builder of the police station? And then the third one is, what would the city do with the old police station building after you guys vacate?
Well, let me address the first one, then maybe have Mr. McAndrews address the second part of that for us. But as far as response, it's rare that everybody's at the police station. So we're spread out throughout the city, throughout the day. So depending on where the call for service comes, and we're also, are we up to 4 square miles now with all the annexation? I think we are. So
Yes.
we can get through the city pretty quick. But I appreciate the thoughts on that. Is definitely a thought on the police chief's mind that we have good, quick response to our community when we're called. As far as what happens to the old building and all that,
I can chime in on that too. The old building in its state, I don't think would be worth salvaging. I think it'd be in the city's best interest to have it removed and be able to utilize that space else in other ways. And then to answer your question on bidding, it would likely be a project would go out to bid. You could also do what's called a progressive design build, where the city would go and hire a architect and contractor together as a partnership, and they come up with a cost and then they build it for you. And that's what West Richland did. It worked very well for them. I've had some discussions with their public works director about that. And if the city decides to go that route, he has indicated he will share a lot more information with us about that. So.
Okay, just thinking of from a cost savings analysis, because sometimes when you award to one party without putting it out to market, there might be a miss on the cost savings, but so that's where I was coming from. But I appreciate the answers.
And just to further elaborate on this design build concept, because that's relatively new over the past decade. First day of Washington, when the chief and I toured West Richland's facility, when you're trying to pair together the architect and the developer, you actually have to go before like a state board where they say if it's good or if it's like a junky plan and get it approved. So it is like a fly by night thing. Like you will not get through unless you've done all your homework. And also the nice part about that design build process is that the guaranteed maximum price is like the maximum price, so it like locks it in too. So it provides some level of certainty. So a little bit of a different way of doing projects, but it's been very successful where it's been deployed.
Sharon.
I'm very much in favor of this, for lots of reasons, but, as you know, and probably not anybody else here, I actually toured the Wazoo Public Safety Building yesterday. And so I'm trying to understand, like, while I love the idea for growth, I'm trying to see how their 9,200, which I was like, oh, it's right here in our packet, works for such a large, I mean, it is small, right? But it somehow works for their large campus with thousands. I don't know what their population when everybody's there. And it is just for the university, not for the city of Pullman, but how does that work for them? And the city of College Place is obviously much smaller than Wazoo, and we're looking at potentially 10,000 more square feet. Again, like,
Yeah.
I love it. I'm just trying to like, what's the difference of the, like,
Well,
be double the size?
What they do is they indicate best practice for industry practice and what we need for getting the job done. And one of the things they also do is they look at other departments, and you can see that they listed some of our comparables in there in the size of agencies. And one of the things that they all say is, we wish we built it bigger. We've run out of space. So I think there's some of that built into it. They also look at calls for service. Our calls for service are a lot greater than theirs.
Right.
So we are busier, and we're actually the exact size FTEs right now with WSU Police Department. We have the same amount of staff, which is
I think that we have more commissioned officers than for their staff. Like, they've got their safety guys. At least his number yesterday was like 15.
no. They actually have a couple more officers than we do, but they also have they have admin, they have a chief, an assistant chief, a lieutenant, and an admin sergeant, and then they have patrol.
Right.
So so on the higher end, they have more staffing probably, but patrol wise, we're equal.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's probably where you're getting those numbers. But and I know that because I was just recently there helping them with their LEMAP, and that's why you and I have had these conversations. But it is a beautiful facility, and they also have that community room that is utilized very well. So
Yeah, no, it was a very impressive space, seeing from where they came from, into that, but also, just an awesome opportunity to find out, you did this 10 years ago. What are the things that you already want to do differently? And that was a great conversation, especially with, on public record, a really grumpy cop, but got some good information. Yeah.
One of the main differences from my personal experience of living in Pullman for
Mhm.
years. One thing with the campus police department is that they do, yes, have that student body, but the majority of those students do live off campus, and the city of Pullman covers obviously a majority of the student population. and as well as Creek Row. So a lot of those areas where there's high call volume are actually more about the city of Pullman and not campus PDs. Campus PD is solely for the campus buildings and anything on like the main mall walk area. So
Sure.
their call services is far different than the city. PD.
But what's the population of Wazoo? Like,
So I mean, it's 20-some thousand.
Yeah.
That being said, student population is dwindling pretty significantly at all universities as well as the Bowman
Right.
too, but that being said, there's a large majority. I mean, you have a lot of first year students, but a lot of students live off campus, technically in all the apartments. So, and all the growth in that area has all been far and away from campus. So, the majority of the student body, as myself, when I was there, lived off campus for the majority of my time there. So that's why you don't see they don't have, they have, yes, some of that population during the day, but for as far as residing, they're technically not on campus. But
Right.
the dormitories are really only on campus now.
thanks though.
The other thing that was unique for WSU Police Department, a lot of their square footage is an indoor parking garage.
Right? We did notice
So,
that and like a ginormous holding area.
Yeah,
And then the where they, is it the Molly Port where you like pull in Sally Port?
Sally Park.
Molly,
Yeah.
Molly, different topic. But they use that as their like defensive, like tactic training
Yes, they
stuff.
do.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's a good use of space, but yeah, like good things. And like I said, just make sure that there's plenty of secure bathrooms. I told him our staff is a lot younger, but plenty of secure bathrooms.
Sounds
That's
good.
what we need. Thank you.
As well.
I think that this is really, really great. I love the idea of having our police department located so much closer to the high school and Walmart, and I just think it makes a lot of sense. The dollar figure that you showed, the 14 something, is considerably less than what I was kind of bracing myself for. It's still a big number, but way less than what I anticipated. So I think that this would be so great. And I think it would really move us in the right direction for you guys to be able to have a facility that you can host events and like host those trainings and things like that, and have it be another piece that we can be really proud of while we're growing. So.
Yeah, that is definitely a dream of ours. And location wise too, I should also mention, as you know, with the Lakes development going across the street and future commercial growth also across the street, I think it's going to be a really good location. It'll be not just a good location to respond from, but it'll also be a visual deterrent.
So Mike, how does this work? I think you were trying to explain that to us, but so for a bond.
Yeah.
We have preliminary plans are based on square footage.
Yeah.
And stuff, and it could be 14 million, it could be 10 million, it could be 20 million. I'm just saying, how does that, when you go, how does this work?
So I mean, basically, you'll have to, city council have passed an ordinance to refer it to voters for the November 2024 ballot. And then you do have to put a number like not to like exceed a certain amount. I think the 14 million is a fairly good number because the hard numbers on that was a little north of 11 million. One of the things I did want to touch on is that same time this is going on, we did file earmark requests with Senator Cantwell and then Representative McMorris Rogers, and those are in play for about another $2.5 million a piece. So if those come to fruition, they'll be $5 million. Now, a question may be at that point, well, hey, why don't you go for a lower value? You wouldn't do that because in case of exactly what you were alluding to, you don't want to do this whole voter thing and still be short money. So that's why my recommendation would be to go for a 14 so we could actually do this. And yeah, I mean, both earmarks are still alive. So I feel good about it. So.
Your comments from anyone? Anything else?
Well, Mr. Rizzatillo has asked me to go over the 2023 annual report, and I can get through that pretty quick for you here. The color scheme on the annual report is pink, and I've been told it's not been a very popular color choice for me to choose. I will say that I think it works, and so we're gonna go through. Okay, so let me. That's the annual report. There should be a PowerPoint presentation.
Maybe let's go through pages. Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to read that.
Wow.
There should be,
Great stuff, great number.
Yeah.
I have a thumb drive if you need it. I did bring it as a backup. I lied. It's not in my pocket. It's in the folder though for not in there. Oh, good. Thanks, Sherry. There it is. Excellent. Okay, I will zip through this for you here. July 2nd, why did the annual report just come out here this last week? Because it just takes time to collect all the data, finalize reports to make sure our data is accurate. So we wait till a little bit later in the month. I also got delayed a little bit because of our accreditation process. It was just so consuming of my time. So, there we go. So just to recap our agency goals, goal 1 is to reduce crime and improve traffic safety within our community. Goal 2 is to provide quality services and innovative policing strategies delivered through excellent customer service. Goal 3 is to provide leadership and resources to attract, retain, and foster a safe, ethical, innovative, knowledgeable, and diverse workforce. And our 4th goal is to work collaboratively with stakeholders to improve quality of life within our city. So we take that and we go forth and conquer. Here is our organizational chart with you got me there at the top, and I still have a lieutenant vacancy. Wink, wink. And then we have clerks. Mary Ann Barr is our supervisory clerk, and then we have Andrea St. Clair, who is our records clerk, and then we have Jamie, who is our part-time records clerk. And then we have Sergeant Schmick, who's here in the room. He's got squad 1, and he also has our 2 investigative detectives, Brian Fortin and Officer Langlois. And then Sergeant Diaz has our auxiliary, which includes our this is last year when George was reserve, but also special enforcement and our school resource officer. And then, of course, Cell has the other officers as well. So our new hires in 2023, we got Austin Dennis from, he's a lateral officer from police department in Virginia. Austin grew up in Pendleton nearby, and his grandmother lived here in College Place and wanted to come home. So we were very fortunate to get him. He's an outstanding young man. And of course, everybody knows George. He's our probationary officer with the most tenure in our department. He's got 18 years of experience as a reserve officer, and finally was able to talk him into retiring from the university and coming to work for us full time. And he is just doing a fantastic job. So we were very fortunate to have him. Did I go too far? Yeah. What is going, let me see here. Sorry, I'm going a little fast. Okay. Support services. There's photos of our clerks. And 2023 was a busy year, although so the number of fingerprints was reduced by 5%. Oop. That's okay. Here we are. The number of concealed pistol license permits are processed. They did a lot more this year in 2023. And public disclosure requests, oops,
It's going out.
trying to interface. Oh, yeah, we can hold a second, you bet. So we had more, we actually had an increase in public disclosures in. Public disclosures, someone may say, hey, I need a copy of a collision report, or I need a copy of a body worn camera video from the contact I had with police officer, or they just want a copy of the case report, those types of things. So they put in for public disclosure on that. You would think we'd have more body worn camera disclosures than we actually do. Last year, we only had 6. We actually had less than the year before. So, but that's an example of a disclosure. And then a little bit less dog licenses sold. So a little reduction in that. So kind of fun to look at this data. This is just a fraction of what they do. They're working so hard in other things too. Of course, they're doing records management and they're processing warrants and doing all those back behind the scene things for the officers as well. So that takes up a majority of their time. But we have a fantastic support services staff, and we get compliments all the time of how professional they are, and they just go out of their way to help people get things done. We've had people trying to get permits and things. They don't know how to work a computer. They come in and they walk them through it and they help them get it done. That's exactly what we want our staff to do for our community.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Can we go back one?
of course.
So a permit to carry a concealed weapon, what are the flavors of that? So is Washington State an open carry state?
It is an open carry state. Mhm.
Which means somebody can have a gun in a holster and go anywhere unless that establishment says no guns, no firearms, no.
Correct. Yeah, you can't take it into public buildings, schools, bars, but you can open free spaces. You can carry.
So open carry means you can't take it into a store
You can take it into a store. Mhm.
unless it has a sign that says no.
If they have a policy that says, yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
They can refuse business and service. Mhm.
so. And that would also cover somebody in an automobile. If somebody has that permit,
You cannot open carry in an automobile, so it has to be away from there. You can conceal carry in an automobile, but you cannot open carry in an automobile. So
is that a separate permit to concealed in a car or?
no, you can only, so to conceal carry, you have to keep it on your body concealed. And you can do that on your body. If you are open carry and driving a vehicle, you need to have that away from the driver's reach, in a trunk, that type of thing.
So somebody driving a car around that has a holster and a gun.
They're not supposed to be doing that. And we educate them. We do have contact with them occasionally, and it's usually a very professional contact. We educate them on
And
that.
that needs to be locked in the trunk or.
Away from the driver's reach, unloaded. Mhm.
Unloaded.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't see that many people carrying weapons and I mean, this isn't some other states. So you don't find that an issue. It's a permit that's applied for, they get it.
Yep.
They can carry a weapon down Main Street. But they can't get in their car with it. Well, they get in their
Not they're
car with it.
concealed, they
but-
can do anything they want with it. And the reason why you get to do that is because you get the background checks, you get the fingerprint. So you have that little additional information that you provide to be allowed to conceal carry. But it hasn't been an issue at all. In some states, I go up to Idaho and you'll be at Lowe's and person next to you is open carry. It's a bigger thing in other states than it is here.
Right.
Mhm.
So I don't want to belabor this, but so somebody's walking down Main Street, they've got a holster, they have a firearm. They get inside their car. They need to put it in the trunk or out of reach,
Right.
unloaded.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And it's still shocking to people to see people open carry.
Yeah,
And I know in Olympia, they have protests and things, people show up with rifles open carry and it's intimidating and, but they're completely legally able to do that.
Okay, hypothetically speaking, what?
You had a question?
Hypothetically speaking,
Mhm.
if I have a concealed carry permit, when I'm driving in my car,
You're fine.
it's
You just-
supposed to be on me. I can't put it in my center console.
You're supposed to, if you can lock it in your center console, you'll be fine. It's concealed, but you're supposed to carry it on your person. And I know Ree's on here too, and she can comment if she wants, if I'm inaccurate on any of this, but I'm pretty confident I am.
If I have a concealed carry permit, okay, and so normally it would be concealed while I'm walking, right? But then when I get in my car, what he had said is that it's supposed to be on my person, so in a holster or whatever, unless it can be locked. So I had asked, is it okay if it's in my center console instead of actually being on me while I'm driving? And he was saying technically it's supposed to be on my person, not right. Technically, so I can't just have it sitting on the seat next to me.
And a lot of women carry it in their purses and a lot of men carry it in fanny packs. So it's, we always apply a healthy dose of common sense when dealing with this. And if we need to educate someone at that time, we think it's a problem, we will. But it's really not I feel like we're spending a lot of time on something that's really not a big issue. Yeah.
Say that, but I'm just saying, there are conversations. People walk down the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get their firearm on them.
Yeah.
You're saying that's not.
Yeah, they should, if you're supposed to have it concealed, or if you're open carry in a vehicle, you're not supposed to have it.
So that's what, that's the next step.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, when I
Concealed
come,
carry permit, you're fine.
and to be fair, I haven't looked at this in a long time, so I can go back and look at it and come back and, because I think it's important that.
Dylan
since
is
we're talking
nodding,
about
so I
this
think you're
in YouTube here, I think it's important that I go back and maybe research a little bit, but
Prepared for this line of
No,
questioning.
I just,
no.
this has come out quite a bit in conversations like that, people, so I think, I agree with you.
I'll do a little research so I can give you a little bit more accurate, shoot from the hip here a little
okay.
bit based off of,
Thank you.
yeah, okay. Yeah, you like that, Punk? It was kind of a dad joke, but I'm glad you appreciated it. Okay, so patrol, and actually I could ask Dylan, am I on base here with that or?
I think one of the realities to a lot of concealed, I mean, this is just the honest reality of a patrol standpoint. 99% of the time, we're not having interaction with people's firearms. If you're concealed carry, we're normally not asking that question, if it comes to that, we normally have something else we followed up on, right? There's some criminal investigation to find out, somebody get arrested, hey, why do you have a firearm in your waistband? Oh, you don't conceal carry, that's an illegal carry. Person's most of the time probably convicted felon anyways, so reality with the normal law-abiding citizen, we don't, it's not a question on a traffic stop we ask, right? So, and sometimes people want to say, I might conceal them, like, all right, well, thank you for letting me know that, we're not gonna concern ourselves with that at this point, and we just carry out our business and handle it as such, and so. In reality, it's not something we bring up, we necessarily look into too closely when we're just interacting with people. Now, if we're investigating a crime, and obviously the firearms involved in the way that we check all those boxes going down it, but that's kind of the reality of how we know.
Yeah, we're not paranoid with concealed carry. They've been checked, background checked, and the amount of crimes committed by people with concealed carry is like 1%. It's a very small fraction of. Yeah. Okay, so patrol, we got pictures of Sergeant Schmick up there and Sergeant Diaz up there, and they're the leaders that go out there and look after our officers out there on the streets. And there's some comparisons from last year to this year, or from 2022 to 2023. Our arrests were down just slightly, and that fluctuates anywhere between 2 to 10%, depending on what's going on throughout the year. Cases, I mean, it's very close as far as taking cases but our incidents have gone up a little bit there. So those are calls for service for the incidents. But every call for service could be different. It doesn't necessarily mean anybody's getting arrested or getting a ticket. It just, could be a noise complaint. So We wrote a little less tickets this last year, and as a former state trooper, I would like to get my guys to write a few more tickets. But we're working on that. And our traffic stops have gone up this year, which I'm very happy about that. But that makes sense though, because we've increased our staffing a little bit too. So that's right on par with what we think that should look like. And then the guys are just doing a really good job. I gotta stop saying guys because we have two women officers who are going to graduate here in a couple of weeks. So we're really excited for that. Our investigative divisions, Detective Fortin there with the Special Investigative Unit. His cases taken in 2023. He had 61. Brian has been very busy this year, and not just with cases. He's also been doing a lot of agency assists. And he also spends a lot of time with our patrol officers who are writing search warrants and doing things. So he's training people up. And this will be Brian's 2024 is Brian's. He'll be exiting out after this year and going back to patrol, and someone else will be selected for that detective spot. So we'll take all that knowledge and experience and put it into patrol. So we're really excited about that. And then I've got some stats in here from Detective Langlois's for the task force. And these are College Place cases that the task force has been working on. And primary investigations in college for Joey have been 8. He also has been assisting on other cases. And the College Place cases specifically for the task force is focused on has been 5. So we're getting a lot of work over here. So we have an investment of 1 detective, but we bring a whole team of detectives from other departments over here to work on these cases, which is a really good benefit for us as a community. Good to have a school resource officer back into the schools. I know Mr. Jessup's pretty happy about that, of course. And I would have to say Officer Shield has really done a fantastic job. He was kind of our unofficial SRO last year. He spent a lot of time in the schools, but this year he's been in there full time, and he's been really busy. So we've got listed up here incidents. So that could be anywhere from a fight to a theft to an incident out in the parking lot. And then he's had 2 criminal investigations with the schools. It shows 0 CPS referrals because he wasn't tracking those, but he'll be tracking those in 2024. Charges as a result of investigations through the juvenile court system, there's been 3. And of course, we try to mitigate a lot of those before they even have to go that route. And then so school-related infractions, citations, there's been 6. That could be school zones. It could be school bus complaints. And then he's also provided 8.5 hours of training to staff over the years. So I think it's been a very good partnership with the school district, and I think it's money well invested. Yeah, so he's done a great job.
Chief, if I may.
Yes, please.
Since I was on, you mentioned a shout out to him as well. He's been tasked with being even more outreach and communication via social media and that kind of stuff, just to added workload. I have no doubt. But just to give him a shout out for having that extra load and having to do that. I'd love to have a conversation at some point in the future of empowering him in the way in which we can versus this. We'll deal with it in-house prior to getting to him. I'd love to have that conversation at some point. Yes, the kids appreciate it. The staff appreciates it. The admin appreciates it, and he's done a wonderful job and a good fit. So thank you. And thank you for getting it worked out with the city.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. He's definitely passionate about it. He loves those kids. He froze. There we go. There's Officer Nordman, our special enforcement officer, and Ron's had another busy year. His code enforcement was down just a little bit, but that's what we expect to see over the years. In 2019 when we implemented it, and now we're at where we're at now in 2023, you would expect that we get compliance throughout the city, and I think we really have. And animal calls have gone down as well. And we also noticed that with the dog licenses. So I'm thinking that our community is having less pets right now. It could very well be a sign of, economic times. We don't know, but we've seen a drop in the number of pet calls. And parking violations always fluctuate year by year, but he was up 18% this year in parking violations, and Ron's done a really good job with that. So very proactive and active with all of those categories. I call him my pitch hitter because he's got so many different job duties, and he's also our evidence officer, and that takes up a considerable amount of his time. Here's our professional standards, internal investigations, if you will. It's you can see 2023, we had 7, and these have all been brought forth by the department. These were not external complaints. These were internal complaints. We had 2 sustained vehicle incidents where we had some officers backing into some objects. There may or may not be one of those individuals in this city council chambers right now.
Hopefully get a new car.
We did focus on backing at our emergency vehicle operators course this last year. So to date, we've been doing very well in 2024. I think the training's working. So we're really proud of this. And as you can see, it just shows some of the public trust that we have. And I really think that the body worn cameras that you've blessed us with has really helped us with a lot of this. So if we get a complaint or a concern, say, hey, come on in, let's watch the video. And oh, you had a video? I mean, he wasn't that bad, but that's what we go with. So here's our crime and traffic statistics. You'll see I have it broken down by 2021, 2002, and then I do a percentage change for those 2 years. And then I throw in 2023, and then I do a 3-year average, which I think is just fun to look at over the last 3 years and see the percentage change. I'm really happy that burglaries are down. That's a big success. And really pretty much everything is down, which is really good for our community. I think that we have a very, very safe community to live in. We're very fortunate that way. And we'll keep, and I really do credit not just the population in, because if you've read my website, it's everybody's responsibility to have a good community, a safe community, and work together, to collaborate together, to have a safe community. And I think we're doing that. I also have to give credit to the officers too, because they have been very proactive, and I really appreciate their hard work in some very difficult circumstances. Yeah, so very happy that domestic violence is down, again, back down again. It went up last year. We're back down. I'm happy to see that. And just general assaults are down as well. So some really good numbers here for our city, and I'm very, very happy to report that. It's a good thing. I threw this in here because of the controversy over the last couple of years with the passage of House Bill 1054 and the anti-pursuit law. And you can see in 2017, we had 2, and then we just increased in 2022 when they implemented the change. And they said we couldn't pursue anybody, so people just didn't stop. And we went down just a little bit last year in 2023. And I put a note in there because the law did revert back on June 6, 2024, where we can now pursue suspects. So here's some significant accomplishments. I'll just read a couple of them. Our Chief for a Day is always amazing. We're getting ready to do another one here in the next couple of weeks. We'll do photo days, and then we have a big event in August. And it's just a kind of a highlight for me throughout my year. I just love doing it. Officer Brandon Rhodes received the Walla Walla Chamber of Commerce Nick Hensel Award for being selected the top Walla Walla Valley Officer of the Year, and that is for all 4 departments. He was selected as the top officer, so we have the top guy here at the PD, and we're very proud of that. And Brandon is a fantastic contribution to our agency. He's also a field training officer and a firearms instructor, and he is just so many things for us, and we're so grateful. He's well deserved. And everything else, Officer Watkins received the Achievement Award for DUI Enforcement Officer again, I think for the 4th year in a row. He's just got a skill set that doesn't stop, and he is making our community safer for traffic safety and impaired driving. We continue to do Shop with the Cop. Prescription drug takebacks have been very successful, and we've had a couple of our officers that have been an employee of the quarter, and just really proud of our team. So I like to throw these significant compliments in here. Oh, I need to drink some water now. I can't talk. I also threw some photos in here. These are just some random event photos throughout the year that we do. That's Chief for a Day. That's Officer Rose receiving his award. And there's Kyle getting his quarterly award. And then I've got Officer Bennett and Dennis being sworn in. The photo there right there with the little ponies there, that was the Cop on Top event, which I'll be doing again here in a couple weeks to raise money for Special Olympics. And there's a photo there right there where Sean's providing our officers some training out at the classroom out there at the range. There's Daniel getting his award. We've got Marianne and Andrea passing out stickers and fun things at National Night Out. And then, of course, our Winterfest event, or a fall party there with the Barbie costumes, and then of Shop with the Cop photo as well. So good stuff. That wraps up the annual report. Any questions? Cool. And it's online too. If you don't have a copy of it, I think you do in your packets, but you can look at it as well. And if people are watching on YouTube, they can go to our website and download the entire annual report.
In pink.
Great job. You know, the whole city's so proud of you guys. I mean, it's just, where this department has come over the years, it's just, kudos to you and your staff. And we all really appreciate you and everything that all you and your staff do. So.
Well, thank you, sir. We could not do it without your support because we wouldn't be able to retain the people that we have without your support. And I mean that. You've blessed us. You've supported us, and you've supported us through some really hard, challenging times, and we are really grateful for that.
And you reward us with your professionalism. So thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
So next on the agenda, if I have this right, Ms. Caldwell will present regulating real estate charitable transfer fees. Thank you.
Thank you. A while back, real estate developers could create a continuous stream of income by attaching a transfer fee to real estate that they developed. And that would go with the land. So the developer would get a stream of income each time that piece of property was transferred. This eventually became illegal in all of the United States, including Washington State. However, there is an exception to that illegality, and that's if the fee is used for a charity or a charitable purpose. And how this came before council today, we've talked about it one prior time in a workshop, and direction was given, but we got a complaint from a citizen in College Place, and it was in regards to Hayden Homes, which I think everyone's familiar with. They have developed residential property in the city of College Place, and they are developing in Walla Walla, and Mike might know for sure whether they're actually building right now or they're going to soon again in College Place. But the complaint we got was that these fees are set. It makes it seem to the purchaser that they're required and that they're not something optional. And that the fee that's being charged or being put in place by Hayden Homes doesn't actually comply with the state law, the RCW that governs it. And what the fee is purportedly used for is to fund an arm of Hayden Homes called First Story, if I remember correctly. And they provide 0 interest loans to low-income home buyers to buy one of Hayden Homes homes. And the definition in the RCW that describes private transfer fees and outlaws them, it excludes out from this illegality a charitable transfer fee. And that definition, we'll come back to it, but basically the fees, these transfer fees are okay so long as it's to a charity. The sole purpose of the charity is to support the cultural, educational, charitable, recreational, conservation, or similar activities benefiting the real property being transferred. So the complaint was, look, we're paying this fee when we sell it. And yes, it's benefiting supposedly getting affordable people into affordable housing, but that's not really benefiting my property that I'm transferring and having to pay the fee. So that was the complaint. So this was brought to council's attention, and council asked staff to go and do some research, which I was able to do eventually. And I reached out to my cohorts throughout the state to see if anyone else had gotten these complaints, what they've done about it. Do they have their own code covering this type of transaction or these fees? And it was crickets. I got no response, which means most likely no one else has grappled with this. Another request was to reach out to the Attorney General's office, which I did. And I ended up having a phone conversation with 2 assistant attorney generals. And they were very much interested in the information that I provided to them and the further information that I was able to give to them in this meeting. One attorney was from the charitable division of the consumer protection section of the AG's office. The other one was in also the consumer protection, but in real estate transactions was his specialty. So I actually met with 2, and they were very interested. They said they could not comment as to whether an investigation would happen. And even if an investigation were to happen into Hayden Homes, they couldn't comment about it. But they were pretty clear that they thought, based on the information that I had provided, that the charitable fee being assessed by Hayden Homes did not comply with the RCW as written. We don't have any case law. We don't have any sort of definition written in the law that helps us kind of figure out what this little exception is. They also told me that they were meeting, I met with them on a Friday. They were meeting with their Oregon counterparts on Monday to talk about this Hayden Homes and this issue. If you recall, at the last workshop, we talked about this. I provided an article from an Oregon newspaper about a group of homeowners who had sued Hayden Homes in regards to this charitable transfer fee. I don't know what happened with that lawsuit. My guess is that there was a settlement because it didn't proceed to any court decision. So I come back to council with a request for further direction on whether council wants staff to move forward any further with this topic. When speaking with the Attorney General's office, they said one thing you could do is ask one of your state reps to ask the Attorney General for a formal opinion on what is meant by this definition of the charitable fee going to a charity. The sole purpose is to benefit the real property. What does that mean? There's no guarantee the AG would answer what that means. And it may be that it means what it means because it seems pretty obvious what it means. The next suggestion is you could lobby Olympia to, make it more clear that what is happening with Hayden Homes doesn't fit into the RCW, but that tends to take a long time if it even happens. And there might be other legislative priorities that cities would have. And the final thing was regulate it at the city level. They did acknowledge that that would be something that could take effect pretty quickly, would be the advantage. So I included in the information to council a proposed code. I kind of just threw everything at it. It didn't come from anywhere but my brain. So it's basically kind of everything I could think of. If we're going to establish, if a developer wants to establish a charitable fee, they're going to have to register it with the city, get city approval before it even becomes established. And we would require certain information. What are you using this money for? How is it benefiting the real property? Requiring that any charitable transfer be an opt-in versus an opt-out. That if someone says somebody buying the homes, if they don't opt out, we prohibit any sort of fee. There's an enforcement provision that if there's a violation, then there's monetary fines. The one issue with the city passing something like this would be, it could very well, we could get a challenge from Hayden Homes. This is the only developer I know that does this, which would take time, but that's what lawyers do. The other thing would be just staff time, having to process if someone wanted to register or someone needed to register and to monitor it and to enforce it. That would take staff time. But I will say the caveat to that is one of the things that law provides is it's a message to the community of what behavior we want in our community, regardless of whether the law is actually enforced. So that's what I have for you, and just need some direction. And Mike, if you want to add anything to the discussion, please feel free.
Yeah, I'll add into this because sadly I've been front line of that since I live in Homestead, and people tend to go my way on that. So, so with the homeowners association, it came up because several people are like, "Hey, what's up with this fee? I don't understand what it is." And it's like in a little micro print that it gets carried out in perpetuity essentially, and you can do nothing about it. So Steve Schulman, who's our HOA president, contacted them like, this really feels like shady because unless you have a microscope, you aren't going to detect that. And he bugged them enough to where they allowed this really weird window where it's like, oh, hey, well, if you file a petition and remove it by like April 15th, we'll do it. But it's like your problem to get the word out and stuff. So to Mr. Schulman's credit, because it irritated him so much, he actually set up a tent at Windmill Park and his own dime made forms and stuff to try to really get everyone to sign up. However, people have busy lives and stuff, so there still is a decent proportion that have not. And there were some stragglers that came in later, and he was like, if you're going to do this for some, you should do it for all. And the response he told me that was communicated to him was, well, bummer, they missed the deadline. And just the attitude, that doesn't really sit right with me. Like, it's one thing if you're going to do the charity thing, say what it's for, be upfront about, give a flyer even, something. But to put it in micro print and then be like, hush hush, that just the whole way it's like gone down over there, it really does not sit right with me. I've tried to shut up about it since I live in there and stuff, but given it is an issue that's really hit the HOA level, and then they asked me as well to bring this up, it is before you, it's been a major issue out there.
And if I may, I apologize, if I may add, it does cost to go and record to take this fee off of the property records, about $300, which per property.
Yes. Yeah, it's per property. And when Steve bugged them enough, when they set the arbitrary deadline, because in my opinion, they didn't think he could do it. They were like, oh, if all this material gets to us, then we'll record it. And because he's a very driven individual, he got several lot of people to file it, and then they have to essentially record it, but there still is the amount of people where they're essentially refused to, and it's like, well, if you want to pull it off, you have to figure it out and you have to pay for it. And also, I mean, they were doing developments in both cities and valleys, so this is going to be a rinse, recycle, repeat situation if we don't get ahead of it. And the reason I want to bring this up in the summertime is like they're supposed to be doing Y-size units eventually on Southwest Stones over there past Windmill Park. So if we don't get ahead of this, are we going to be recreating it again? And then there's even other proposals. And it just does not really sit right with me, especially some of the communications that Mr. Schulman clued me in on, where it's like, bummer, deal with it. I mean, seriously, when we're dealing with affordable housing crisis, that's the attitude as you move out, just charge a couple hundred. But depending what house you're in over there, it ranges anywhere from like 500 all the way up like $1,500 in there per transaction. So I mean, that's a lot of change. And from what we can tell, I mean, there was like one house that may have benefited from it, but they're collecting way more than that one house, and it's supposed to be in the neighborhood, and so they're collecting all this money, but where's the in the neighborhood part?
Mike, in so many years here, there's other developers. That would be great. I haven't heard a whole lot of positive out of this particular developer for years and years and years. And I know this isn't hold up in the court of law, I'm sure, but walks like a duck, talks like a duck situation here. I mean, it's slimy. Ms. Colwell, I'm not sure when you're reaching out to everyone, did you happen to get a feel that no one's had grappled with this because no one has seen it, or no one's grappled with this because it doesn't seem worth it to them?
I believe that no one's grappled with it because they haven't seen it. Hayden Homes is operated mostly in Oregon. I think they're buying property up in Idaho. So I think College Place, Mike might be able to tell, but one of the first.
Yeah, this irritates the tar out of me. I mean, this fires me up because alone you get money off of it. They're not using it. Well, I don't know. I have to say, but we don't need to add more costs to people who are already struggling trying to get a doggone home in the first place. So if there's other developers, great. Secondly, Ms. Colway, I'm not sure what it is that needs to be done, but I'm wondering, you gave us several options, so thank you for this extensive research. But doing something on the city level as a starting piece and then allowing us then to start there and then pursue further, in my personal opinion, of course, I'm a little more direct and fired up about it. Others may be, but I think this is junk. I think it's absolute junk. And so and if you're looking for that, in my personal opinion, whatever you got to do to not have these slimy fees on people who are already struggling for homes.
Go ahead, Mike. I would just say there is a proposed code in front of you that we could have a future meeting where it allows for an opt-in, and it just clearly says what it is. So that way there isn't all this like shadiness that's going on. And I mean, I'll be upfront. It's in such small micro print that like when I bought the house in there and so forth, I didn't even catch it. And it's like, oh, what's the $700? And it's like, oh, that's what it went to. Wow. So I mean, I was even like a little frankly hoodwinked a little bit on that one. So I mean, that is the issue. It's not being advertised up front. There isn't a flyer. You literally have to take out a microscope and try to find the thing. And I will tell you, from buying a house, all other forms and stuff, they like shove at you like you're gonna catch that. So yeah.
Ms. Boyle.
I don't have any questions, but I completely agree with Paul and think that this whole thing is just needs to be stopped. It's kind of a mess.
Ms. Sherman.
So from us you're just wanting some sort of direction. I mean, I agree with Paul and Monica on this, but I guess, so if we just say, yeah, like this is the direction we're going, great, you can look into it and make us all better. But then when you're talking about the filing Like changing, like having to file something, the $300 thing, is that something that we just have as a home, as a Hayden homeowner?
Yes.
Is that something that I like would have to do now to get rid of that, or is that something that can just be taken care of if and when I sell my home?
So so I can like answer a little bit to you since I was like on the receiving end of that one over there. So I mean, really, in a case of Homestead, Steve spearheaded the whole thing and got him to do the one-time waiver. For all these other areas, at least as it stands right now, folks are on their own in essence. So they need to file it. I would recommend just because recording all the I mean, the form and Steve has it and I have it, I can share it. It was actually fairly extensive, so I would recommend filing it soon. Make sure you get like all the stuff. It had a lot of information, and I'll just put it that way. And even with me, when Steve had the tent, I actually went to the tent where he was helping me. So that gives a clue.
And if I may, just to take a step back from what Mike is talking about right now, I have not communicated with Hayden Homes, but I imagine they could just say, no, this is established. It's legal under the law. So it doesn't matter what you file or what you pay, it's going to stay. I'm not going to sign anything. I think the reason why Steve has gotten somewhere is because it's pretty obvious what is happening with the money isn't in compliance with the code. So maybe they're just trying to, you know, get rid of the smoke kind of thing.
If you're
Yeah, my
looking
thoughts on.
for a recommendation, Ms. Caldwell, I would recommend that we move to, and I know we're not voting today, but that we look for a local law where we clarify what is expected from the developers, and also if they want to strong arm their position and say, well, it's in the code and there's nothing in the law, there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe we can have them show how the fee has a positive impact in our community directly. Because for them to say it goes in our charity and then it's used for you know, cultural, educational, charitable, recreational, conservation efforts, but we don't know where. We cannot quantify it. We have no proof of that money being used for a good end. So maybe putting a piece in the local law to that end, to measuring a quantifiable means of having, okay, you're charging that fee, show us how it's being used to improve our community, to make our community better. That would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, Lauren here. I appreciate that and I support that. This is something where we need to codify this at the city level, because when this conversation started, it was like it's the wild, wild west. It's whoever in a community can do something individually to try to stop this. Instead, this needs to be something where it's obviously a violation of a law. And this is something that these individuals then can fall back on that, instead of who's the most energetic and intelligent in a community that can put something together to try to offset this. This needs to be not a one-man stand. This needs to be a city position. That's my thoughts on that. Yes.
I'm in agreement with the opinions on my fellow council members. I think moving to enact a local law seems like the best, quickest way to get our citizens justice. At the same time, I think it's really important to push to have the law clarified or changed, because I mean, if there's illegal activity on the part of this entity in other areas as well. I don't think we're necessarily the person to try to save everyone across Washington State, but it needs to be on the radar of those that are tasked with protecting the citizens across Washington State. So, yeah, pursuing kind of higher ups partnering and making folks aware that, hey, this isn't right. And hopefully, the ideal situation here is that. There could be a way for Hayden Homes to be in compliance with the law in a positive way that does benefit our community. You know, they kept that, you know, in there for a reason to benefit communities, but you know, it's so vague, it seems like it's just ripe for abuse.
Thank you. Mr. Jessup, anything else? Any other questions? Well, Reed, I think you
I have
understand.
my direction, yes. thank
All
you.
righty, good, okay.
And I will come back with some more concrete laws for you guys to consider.
Great. Thank you so much for your hard work and all the phone calls you made. And yeah, I'm sure that was thank you so much.
Here.
If I understand this correctly, the last item on the workshop agenda is the draft fiscal year 2025 through 2030 transportation improvement plan by Mr. Rizzatolo.
You have 2 minutes.
Yep, I'm gonna speed through this. Sherry, if you could click on the map. So really heavy lift of a lot of our infrastructure projects is capital facility plan. However, state of Washington feds in all their glory. They also make you file this thing as well, go after grant money because they put in a surface transportation improvement plan. So really this map details everything. It's color coded. Take a look at it if you want to. We broke up in various sections. The first page of this document, the tip, just to go over the most important stuff really quick. Projects we've already talked about. Intersection for a TIF district over at College by the high school. Whitman driving a Home Depot roundabout. That's a newer one. Southeast Birch, 4th to 6th, dealing with water, and that road's just really messed up. So rebuilding that. Also the East-West road across the newer development, and then Southwest Majanier. And then teeing up 8th Street between downtown College Place and Lions Park with the grant we have. So we have a sidewalk that goes down there. That's happening. And then as you go further out, it gets into projects that are really will work with developers and such to make happen as things progress. So like Ofty Road, that dual roundabout at 125, that's a good example of that. As you go into the other PDF, we have the sidewalk improvement program. That one we've been very successful at Community Development Block Grant. So 8th Street, that's the next one with the TIB grant. And then in future years, just whittling down stuff based on grants we have. So fixing up sidewalk on Larch, Whitman Drive, the multi-use path. We have MPO money for that. And now as CDBG is closed up, really doubling down to go after money to put sidewalks in the gaps on B Street. And then second between Academy Way and Davis. 4th to 5th, page 4 of the 5 is the block resurfacing, and that is where we try providing overlay, so smoother asphalt to get life out of it. That's funded really by the TBD, the Transportation Benefit District, going in next year. Cotter Place also putting in new pavement on a block of 4th Street where the 4 Bikes project was at, because there is a block of it where the surface is deteriorating. 10th as well. And then Larch, with all money we're putting in Lions Park. TIB has a grant program that does overlays. So we really wanted, we were originally going to chip seal Larch. We do want to overlay that between 4th and 12th, since of all money it's going in over at Lions Park. And we've never been able to get the overlay money before. Now we have the TBD. There's actually an argument for it. And then the last one is the chip seal. This year, this program was punted because the county was using much bigger rock, and people would complain way more because it wasn't meant for urban style chip seal application. So it was delayed. This year we'll double down next year where they'll go back to the normal rock. So Maple up off C Street, Evans, Elm, and then some of the Highland Park area. And then you can see the methodology. A lot of this comes from the pavement management plan y'all adopted about a year ago, but this is like Santa's list of projects. Take a look at it, and there'll be a public hearing on it last meeting in July. It'll get adopted if y'all do so, and then we'll enter it in the state program and go from there.
Excellent, Mike. Thank you. Ms. Boyle, do you have any questions?
Don't make sense to me.
Sherman?
No questions.
Mr. Espinoza, any questions?
No questions.
No question.
Getting down here, guys. All right, great, thank you. Yes, we've had a lengthy meeting this evening, a lot of good discussions and a lot of good presentations. Mike, I had just one tail question about the police station, just real quickly, a bond issue. Requirements or limitations on how much bond, we're not anywhere near,
Not on the voter approved that, and for something like this, it really needs to go that route, so we have ample capacity.
The capacity's
on
fine.
the voter approved side.
exactly, okay, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
what you're talking about, great, okay. Well, if there's any other business, for the order? No, all right, everybody's ready. I'll now conclude this, workshop at 7:39 PM. Thank you so much.